Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where two grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things we love. My name's Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett.
How's it going?
Yeah, rough. A little bit rough, mate.
That's what you get for indulging in alcohol at our age.
Yeah, so I do apologise if the energy level is a little bit low today from me, but it was my mate's 50th last night, so happy birthday, Butters. Yeah, so I got on the sauce last night, and I am suffering a little bit for it because I am 51 years old. And I don't drink often.
And also, a happy birthday to my brother, who's over in the States. It's been his birthday for a few days now, but that doesn't stop him.
No, well, one of those people. Yeah,
he likes the American burgers for sure, and canoeing around the Great Lakes. Sort of this. Otherwise, over there, basically volunteering at a veterans hospital or some such thing.
Oh, very noble. Yeah, been a pretty quiet week for both of us. Just busy with life, really. I haven't done anything too exciting. I read a new book arrived that I ordered ages ago from overseas from Justin Alexander called "So You Want to Be a Game Master." I can see it just got nominated as well for an ENnie.
An ENnie award.
An ENnie award. Do you know what that is? I don't know what an ENnie award is.
Yeah, it's an inside industry award thingy that people get nominated to, kind of like an Academy Award or some such thing.
Similar book to Sly Flourish's Lazy DM book. It's got some good tips in it. Tips for running dungeons, running wilderness, how to make rulings. Yeah, I've always liked flicking through books like that. Sometimes you pick up something even when you have been game mastering for years. It's always good to get other people's perspectives, and that's maybe something we should do one day. Talk about game master tips. Yeah,
we could for sure.
Yeah,
add our 2 cents to the millions that are floating around the internet.
There is a lot. You are pissing in the wind.
It's true. At least I have years of actual experience to draw on, and I am very much a sandbox DM. So we have very different DMing styles. You do a lot of prep and stuff like that, says AJ. So you're like a wizard, I'm like a sorcerer, basically. I just intuitively run games, which scares the piss out of some people who like dungeon mastering with plans in place, set adventures and encounters and things that, I do time around time itself. So I know exactly how long each segment of a one-shot game is going to take, for instance. Yeah. So I know that I'm going to need at least 4 hours if there's 3 rooms in a dungeon, and things like that. So I can do those. So I've got a CR chart in my head for how long gameplay actually lasts. So it's an intuitive thing that you pick up from years and years making monsters and knowing how long those hit points are going to last, kind of just intuitively. You can.
So pacing is a really important part of being a game master. Picking up when combat is going on too long, or the players need to be nudged in a certain direction, so you need to move the story. But yeah, I'm a Excel spreadsheet type guy by nature. Probably why I've been in management most of my career in various forms. Sorcerer and wizard is a good summary there.
Role-playing games definitely set you up to be an assistant manager or manager position in life, because there's a lot of the same sort of skills, spreadsheets and stat cards and, accounting and maintaining and ensuring that you remember what happened last week is a skill,
Guy at my work was really excited. He came running up to me because he knows I'm obviously a big D&D guy, and he was like, "We're going to start playing 3.5." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Do you like math?"
Yeah. Consult the charts. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So, I said maybe try Pathfinder and see if you like that. I'd say, my recommendation, if you are interested in trying any of the older editions of D&D, especially 3rd edition, I think Pathfinder is probably one of the better editions of 3rd edition.
Well, you would hope so, because it was basically an advancement on
Yep.
3.5 edition. So yeah, that's why we call it 3.75 jokingly. But it is true. Pathfinder 2nd edition is kind of just like a condensing and consolidating all the stuff that they've added to the game by necessity over the years. So it's not really a different game setting. It's just basically an advancement of it. So it's like, it's 3.85. You could say. God, I hope
3.99.
Yeah.
3.999 recurring. Yeah, that's not what we're going to talk about today, though.
No.
Some housekeeping as well. We did. We might go back to that when we continue with our D&D. Is we totally forgot 3 really important settings as well, like Star Frontiers, Gamma World, and Eberron.
Yeah,
which is pretty bad.
I've never been a huge fan of Eberron, but that's just me personally. I know a lot of people who play it and enjoy it. It is like a steampunk kind of etherpunk. It's got elements of that. It's got a touch of the modern to it, which is fine for some people, but some people don't like the space guns in their D&D. They don't like lightning locomotives and things. But you can play heist type adventures. They've got a city of towers called Shan, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So it's got like
I don't like Warforged as a game master.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness with Eberron because it was designed to be a standalone setting.
Wasn't it a competition?
Yeah, sure was. They basically put out the call saying, "Look, we know you guys do a lot of home world world building, so give us your best shot, and if we like it, we'll install it as an official setting of D&D." And that's exactly what happened when Keith Baker submitted Eberron. They liked it so much they bought the company, sort of thing. So yeah. And he's now even more in the fold of D&D because he was very much keen on integrating it with the rest of the D&D world as well, and that's what he's been doing. So he's still active and building the setting and writing stuff for it.
His stuff's mainly on DM's Guild, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. So, and of course, the team that was responsible for Dungeons and Dragons at that time is now Monty Cook Games, essentially. They all hiked off and made their own company, which is exactly what you should do if you are working at Wizards of the Coast, is basically headhunt all the talent which they're going to use and abuse. And then once you all get eventually fired after your projects, go and form your own company and set up in competition with the people who fired you.
Yeah.
So, D&D becomes like the 2000 AD comic where everybody gets their start, but otherwise just produces shit content so they can get noticed by independent publishers.
It's kind of where you do your internship.
Yeah.
You just cut your teeth there.
Yeah.
All right. So we decided last week we're going to do our top 5 favorite Marvel characters with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out next week. I think it comes out.
Yep, very relevant.
Yeah, so
I think I might actually go and watch that at movies.
Yeah, I'm going to. Did you speaking of role playing games? Did you ever mess with the? TSR actually released a Marvel game in '84.
I have fondled every role playing Supers game at some point or another.
Yep. I owned it, but no one wanted to play. I was at the time. That was when the people I was playing with was sort of moving into advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and comic books were actually considered kids' property. It was like I was bringing. Do you want to play with My Little Pony to to a grown man type?
Yeah, my players had the same attitude towards Toon, where you play like Saturday morning cartoon characters. They have modern iterations of those cartoony games, but Steve Jackson basically mastered Toon, and it did the job perfectly. You couldn't get killed; you just get timed out for like 5 or 10 minutes of game time, and the rest of it was it really did suit my my style of gameplay, which is just anything goes sandbox. Because it's a cartoon, it's completely chaotic. So superheroes games, there've been a lot over the years. I play one of the earlier ones, which is Heroes Unlimited. That came about the same time that Villains and Vigilantes and Champions and Marvel superheroes with the phase rip system was around.
Well, you've got your own super
I
game, don't
do,
you?
yeah. My superhero game is designed purely for just basically a love letter to the supers hobby community, and my reaction to the drama with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, basically trying to monetize everything. So I designed a system which was perfectly suited to this medium of talking over and designed to be picked up extremely quickly and for free by anybody. So anybody can go to my Discord server, get the charts and tables for it, and make up characters and start playing immediately. It has no rule system. Basically, just a dice chart is the entire rule system, and the rest of it is all just improv, pretty much based on your character's concept of their superpowers. Because in practicality, you don't really need game mechanics when it comes to superpowers. They're just in the way.
You're going to play that on the live stream with Wally?
I am. Yeah, they've asked me to run them a game. So
nice.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll plug that when that's going to happen.
Yeah, so far in every single game of Super Atomic, either a city is blown up or a space station is blown up or the moon's had a chunk of it blown out. So yeah, it's lived up to its name pretty well.
Yeah, nice. All right, so we're going to do 5 each, you reckon?
Yes, so today we're talking about Marvel specifically. Mostly me and Nacho are both comic book fans. We've watched all the movies, obviously, but they've been talked about to death, so we'll probably mention them.
I have not watched all the TV. I kind of wish, this is my opinion on the MCU, it should have taken a break. The reason we got so excited by things like The Phantom Menace and The Force Awakens is because we were thirsty for Star Wars. We got starved. Obviously, Disney, who now owns Marvel, isn't going to, like, similar to Hasbro, they're going to milk that cow until it's falls over dead. I just feel it's oversaturated now. I don't know what's going on. There's too much. It's become like homework. I kind of stepped away a little bit, but I am excited for this new Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Yeah, we're ready, I think, for super counterculture, because anything that becomes established, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe was once cool, and now it's shifting from cool into the establishment. And now Deadpool has come along and he's anti-establishment. So he is the perfect outside observer that knows that he's in a fictional setting because he talks to the camera and he talks about like the Marvel Cinematic Universe like a fan, even though he's a character in the universe. That's why Deadpool is so outrageously popular, is because essentially he's fanboying inside the comic in his own crazy thought bubbles. But to everyone else, he's insane. But to us, it makes perfect sense what he's saying because his delusion is true from our point of view.
Let's just get Deadpool out of the way. So he's not on my list. Is he on your list?
No, he's not on my list. He's been tangentially involved in a lot of the characters on my list.
I don't personally like read Deadpool comics. I find them a little bit 13-year-old juvenile humor. They don't seem to. I like my superheroes with. I like humor. Don't get me wrong, but I do like drama as well, and you don't seem to get that with a Deadpool comic much. He's a pretty new character. I mean, he was only invented in 91.
It was him and like Gambit. I think came around the same time. Gambit's pretty new.
So Rob Liefeld is the creator, who's a comic book artist that gets a lot of shit because he can't draw feet.
He gets a lot of shit for the right reasons. Nobody ever detracts from the idea that he came up with a lot of comic book character ideas and things like that. But a lot of people give him shit because he tried out shorthanding ways of producing comics which just don't really stand the test of time, like using centerfold models in adult magazines to base his character art on.
That was I mean that period of Todd McFarlane, that sort of Image Comics area. That's that quite famous cover of Mary Jane, where she's very voluptuous. So there was a lot of and if you look at all the Spawn comics and Todd McFarlane's art there, all the women are very curvy, I'd like to say, is a polite way of putting it. I did notice in the Deadpool trailer there is a dig at Liefeld there. They walk past a shop and I think it's called Liefeld's Shoes or something like that. So it's obviously a dig at his, because it's a ongoing joke that he can't draw feet.
Yeah.
If you go look at his art, you'll see what we mean.
Yeah, so the Easter eggs are there for sure. But that's the cool thing about the comic as well, because the comic is like that as well. It's got all these in fandom references that are featured in Deadpool, because Deadpool is this character that
Yeah,
is in our world as well.
He's got a healing factor similar to Wolverine. Actually, probably more powerful than Wolverine.
Yeah.
I remember
there's one super cancer essentially.
Yeah, there was one particular run where in the alternate universe, basically the Marvel zombie run.
Right.
There's a part where Deadpool is still alive just as a head, and Logan's carrying him around in a bag, and he's just a talking head that won't shut the fuck up. But he's also Logan's only friend.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and obviously his fourth war awareness is that part of his powers?
No, just part of his madness, essentially.
But Ryan Wilson, not Ryan Wilson, Jesus Christ. Ryan Reynolds, he absolutely owned that character. And,
yeah. Much like Wolverine is pretty much owned by Hugh Jackman, but Hugh Jackman wasn't really gonna play Wolverine to begin with. There was lots of other actors that were on the cards for it.
He was an unknown at the time.
Yeah, it would be shocking to pop into an alternate universe, but I can guarantee you, if you popped into an alternate universe, the first thing you could do is check the Marvel Cinematic Universe and see if all the actors are the same people, because they wouldn't be.
I can't remember the actor's name, but it's the guy that was the bad guy in Mission Impossible 2. He was the guy that was meant to play Wolverine, but he turned down X-Men to do Mission Impossible. So he was the first choice, and Hugh was the second choice.
Yeah.
So
because back when the X-Men movies came out, that was before the MCU, and nobody knew that superhero movies were going to be big at some point.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we get into our top 5?
Right. So the first couple that I have are actually DC characters that I crossed off and took away, but they established a theme, a tone. It's like, why do I like those characters as opposed to other DC characters? So the DC characters I like are Flash and Green Lantern. The Flash, because he's got his own, like, he doesn't seem like a big character. He hasn't got the most world-shaking power. Speed is his thing, but he can change time. So he can change. He spawned the entire multiverse of DC Comics pretty much with the whole
Flashpoint storyline
crisis and stuff, where he went back and messed with the timeline. And the Green Lantern, of course, is just part of. Earth is just one little planet in a galactic police force, so he's got this big thing that goes on outside of it. Kind of like Captain Marvel in the MCU is, she's like, she shows up to deal with big threats to the Earth, but otherwise it's too small fry for her. She's like a really high level character, going back to the starting camping ground when things start getting disrupted.
Also, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. He gives a lot of shit about the Green Lantern movie, but I thought it was okay. I thought it was.
Taika Waititi's in it as well.
Yeah, that's true. So the top of my list is Ant-Man, Henry Pym, the Ant-Man of Henry Pym. So he's the old man Ant-Man for the modern film franchise fans, but for me, he will always be Ant-Man because like a lot of domestic violence issues and drinking issues.
Going to say to you, that's quite a controversial choice. Mark Miller Ultimates really addressed that.
Yeah, and this is typical of a really long comic run, so they really got into the weeds with his character, who he knows and his relationships and stuff. And so his relationship with his wife has been contentious, and it's good because like he's a brilliant individual. Like he's a top scientist, and he came up with all these super inventions, the Pym particle and stuff like that. So it deals with high intelligence people being neurodivergent and having addiction issues and emotional issues and things like that, which is good.
He's an original Avenger as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's Jack Kirby creation.
Yeah, it could be.
But that's what happens with those those B-list characters. They do have interesting arcs because writers are given these, the way Marvel was working back there, like you had to earn your, be a decent writer to get the Spider-Man or to get the. So your first assignment was you'd be given a character that no one really cares about, and some interesting work came out of those characters because of that. So, because no one was really into Ant-Man, and he was always considered a little bit of a joke. I don't know who the writer would have been at the time, but yeah, obviously he took risks and went into that whole domestic. So domestic abuse, he basically used to smack his wife around.
Yeah,
which is obviously something that was quite, kept under the table.
So yeah, even mentioning something like that in a comic book was way out there. And you as a comic book seller, you would be like, well, what's the point? Why would you include that in the story for, like, boys reading comics and stuff? And it's just like so important in the long run to look at that. Like, it's like looking at the X-Men, and they're dealing with civil rights movements and civil rights issues through mutations.
He's similar to Reed Richards. They're so brilliant, but they're absolutely fucking shit at relationships with their wives, and they got really hot wives.
Mr. Fantastic is also on my list as well. Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So similar to Ant-Man, he's brilliant. He's been through trauma, and yet he's also the idealized version. So he doesn't have like mental issues or addiction problems or anything like. He's more like a classic, the scientist who invented the Powerpuff Girls. He's more stable.
He's cold, and you're like, he seems to have no emotion because he's just he's a brilliant scientific mind.
Yeah, he's a workaholic. He's obsessed with his inventions and stuff.
And he'll do stuff, and you'll like read the comic, and you go, "Why is this guy such a dick to everyone?" And then at the end of it, he'll go, "Oh, sorry, the reason I was being a dick is because I was doing something that I didn't have time to explain to you guys because it would have slowed me down, and I just saved the world again. By the way, you're welcome."
Oh yeah, and that person is a Krull impersonator, and that person is not the president. That's a robot that I invented because the president's on another planet.
He's also part of the Illuminati. Where's my brain? Sorry, hungover.
Illuminati.
The Marvel version. Yeah,
it makes sense because he's taken on like Galactus, and Reed Richards is one of those Marvel characters that is expected to come up with the impossible solution. That's what he does. Whereas, and to a certain extent, Tony Stark is like that too with technology. Like Tony invents something that will do this, and God knows who invents all of Hawkeye's arrows.
Why do you think?
Certainly not him.
Because I like Reed Richards as well, but why do you think he doesn't work in like they haven't got him to work in the movies yet? Is it his weird stretchy powers? They can't quite get that right. Because in the comics, it's out there.
Well, we've got a little bit of rehash drama, like rehash fatigue from them rehashing the franchise over and over and over again. Like, how many times can we see these origin powers and stuff? And like the Fantastic Four are kind of important from the comics history point of view. But from the Marvel Cinematic Universe point of view, they could not even exist, and it wouldn't matter.
The new movie is going to take place in the 60s, which I think is smart. So that's a good way to do it. Like, and you can explain the reason they're not here is because they were taken somewhere else, or they're off planet in another dimension. Yeah,
they do actually work better as legacy heroes. So next on my list is Black Bolt. So Black Bolt, unfortunately, got a really, really bad showing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They tried to bring in the Inhumans. There just wasn't enough. Like, it was too different from everything else, and they couldn't see the fandom, couldn't see how they fit in anywhere, and it was just badly done.
I never watched that Inhumans movie, show, whatever it was.
You didn't miss much.
I do like the actor that played Black Bolt. He's gone on to be Christopher Pike in Star Trek Brand New Worlds. He's a great actor.
Yeah, the cool thing about Black Bolt is just the character concept itself, more than anything. So he's an enigmatic figure because he can't talk. The reason why he can't talk is because he was born with the ability where his vocal cords will trigger a electronic disruption, which disrupts electrons around their shells around atoms, which means that he can basically mess with energy. He's got extreme levels of energy manipulation. For instance, one of the Celestials, which is one of the great big things, you remember that head that the guys are flying around inside of
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, the Nowhere head. That's one of the Celestials. So
and the thing that popped up in Internals, that at the end of Internals, that has never been mentioned.
Yeah.
since. since in the MCU.
So in the MCU, they've got a personification of universal constants like death and fate and things like that. And they also have the Eternals, which are like the first beings or beings from another universe or something. They don't really explain it. They're just like these big, massive, super duper powered individuals.
That's what Galactus would be an Eternal, would he?
Yeah, he's supposed to be the last surviving member of the last universe, the last Big Bang, essentially. So yeah, we don't know, but obviously his power level's out of whack because he has to absorb whole planets worth of life to survive. So it was kind of like that, kind of like Galactus showing up outside the solar system, and it was one of these Eternals shows up. Black Bolt goes out to meet the thing and goes ping with his power and basically does his electronic scream thing, and the Eternal noticed him, which is basically an acknowledgement that it saw him as a threat or something of interest, which from that point of view, it's like you notice an ant. Oh, that ant shouted at me so loudly that I could hear it. That's the power difference scale. So Black Bolt has got enough power to basically deck Superman or any of those sort of characters. And there's been really good scenes of that because you're always waiting for it to happen. And it'll always be like the armed forces of Genosha are facing off against the military of 3 different, countries, blah, blah, blah. And then Black Bolt shows up out of the blue suddenly and goes, don't, like that. Just one whispered word, and then a battleship and various other things are blasted out of the way of the shockwave. So
he's also part of the Illuminati. Is that how you say it?
Illuminati?
Illuminati. Far out. What is wrong?
To illuminate the room. To illuminate the room.
Don't. I can say this word. Just don't drink, guys.
And paparazzi. Illuminati. It kind of sounds like Nazis. Illuminati.
My brain is broken today.
Yeah.
He is also part of that. I did like his representation in the Doctor Strange movie. That scene where they basically made his head explode.
Yeah. Yeah, he's interesting because he's such a tragic, tortured character as well, and he's the leader of that nation of.
They all live on the moon.
Yeah,
They've all got weird powers.
They change around. They did live somewhere in Antarctica, but basically they need to live separate from the rest of humanity. And essentially they are historic mutants. So they were experimented on by an alien species that gave them the ability to get mutated by this Terrigen mist.
The Kree experimented on them, I believe.
So when Black Bolt went into the Terrigen mist when he was a baby, he instantly got the ability to transform energy via his vocal cords. So he had to be in a chamber to protect everyone from his crying as a baby, and he was being taught through his entire life to never ever speak, no matter what, even when he's asleep, because otherwise he would blast everyone. And the power of the city that he rules is generated from his own energy blasts. So he just goes down into the basement, hooks himself up to the generator, whispers recharge, and the energy batteries of the entire city are recharged from his power.
His wife's got weird powers as well.
Yeah, Medusa's hair. And what's the first thing they did in the series? Cut all her hair off. Like, it doesn't work for me.
No, well, it's a CGI budget issue, I think.
Yeah.
How can we save money?
Yeah.
We'll remove that.
Yeah, and they got another member of the family, which is a dog, and various other things.
Yeah, he can teleport.
Yeah. So it had a lot of things going for it, that show. It just had no sense of identity, and it had no sense of connectivity to the rest of the MCU.
Well, I think what the Internals was, they didn't have the rights to the X-Men.
Yeah.
So they were desperately trying to introduce X-Men type characters into the MCU because they weren't. This is when the whole Fox Disney merger was still in its early days, because they really pumped the internal comics at the same time. So that's only how I know. I've never really been that interested in them. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is obviously going to be the MCU's new X-Men, so I should read some of these. Yeah, they are good comics, but yeah, it just failed. They weren't the X-Men. They didn't know how to do it. Remember Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
They did a whole sort of a storyline about the mists coming and different people.
They would have been better off bringing them in as adversaries or something through the Asgard connection. So Asgard was really the MCU establishing that they're in a cosmos and that the Asgardians are just an alien species that are in charge of this strange portal network and stuff. So they would have been better off bringing them in as that mythological arm of it was already established in the fandom. So in our minds, we already knew that the Asgardians must deal with equals or contemporaries. And to have something like that that's been present throughout Earth history, so the Asgardians would have been dealing with the Inhumans, back before, and it would have helped establish that it's like that's where the legends of these Asgardian as gods and why they're established on Earth and stuff is religion. That's how I would have done it.
As soon as they got the rights back to the X-Men, they just dropped the Inhumans like a hot shit.
And that's the other thing that you can sense in it as well, is that there wasn't any sort of, they weren't really tying it into the MCU because it was just a throwaway property as far as they were concerned. They were just testing the waters to see whether it would make any money, and it didn't, and they just dumped it. So, yeah. And also, they should never have done that because it doesn't really build a lot of brand trust with the company. Like, well,
that is, phase 4 has felt a bit like that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to get invested in this because if it's not popular with the rest of the fandom, I'm not going to get any more of it. That's
all right. Who else is on your list, mate?
So next up, we've got Doctor Strange.
Nice.
And again, because he brings in a whole aspect of the Marvel universe.
Plus, you've unknowingly picked all the Illuminati. Oh, for fuck's sake, what is wrong with my brain?
Illuminatis.
Illuminati. You've unknowingly, if you had Submariner on there, you would have ticked a bingo that you didn't even know you were playing in.
Namor is on my list as well, yeah. Namor for the same reason, because he's in charge of like a whole world. Most of the world is covered in water, and Namor is
have I got a comic to suggest to you to read, mate?
Well,
I can't pronounce it, obviously.
Yeah, Namor is basically our Aquaman, right? So Aquaman's interesting because much like the other characters, he was kind of he's off in the weeds, off in the backwoods, and the comic writer has got a long stretch of issues. And so Namor gets this big, like, involved kingdoms and all that sort of stuff. You see this in the Aquaman movie where you've got the different kingdoms of the seas and all that sort of stuff.
I did not like the Namor that they chose in Black Panther.
I object to the very idea of them changing Namor into a Central American mythological figure and them being a lost race of Central Americans. But they handle it really well. Like, it's done really well, and that culture is not well represented in the movies and stuff. And so if they were going to do it, they did it well. But they shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Tell you who I thought would be great as that character. He's a bit old now. The guy that was Spock in the Abrams Star Trek reboot, Zachary Quinto.
Yeah,
I think he looks exactly like Namor.
Yeah. I would go even like Yul Brynner would have been the perfect Namor. He just like Yul Brynner basically is Namor, even down to this. Yeah, but he's a weird looking cat. Kind of elf meets Italian.
You have to pull off those. You have to pull off those speedos.
Yeah, and having winged ankles. So Namor is a mutant, which is interesting. He's
the first mutant.
Yeah, one of the first mutants. So he's like before Golden Age, a mythological mutant. So talking of mutants, Havoc from the X-Men, because he was the lead. He gets a little bit of spotlight in X-Men First Class, but he's actually much better in graphic novels and stuff. And he was never really given enough attention in X-Men, I think. He's the brother of Cyclops. He's got similar powers to Cyclops in that they both absorb cosmic radiation and release it. Like, Cyclops actually releases it in a healthy sort of way, and he's also got his eye blasts, which are uncontrolled. Whereas Havoc, on the other hand, releases it in an uncontrolled sort of way. So it either releases constantly from his body, so he's always ticking over with radiation, or when he does release it, he hasn't got any way to concentrate it, so it just pulses out of his body.
He kind of has that chest flex.
Yeah,
when
they represent it as these concentric circles which come out, and he's come up with various methods of controlling it in the past, and it's usually his super suit. But the interesting thing is that the power that Cyclops blasts out of his eye beams, Havoc is completely immune to that, and Havoc, his energy blast, Cyclops is completely immune to his blast. They're like opposites of each other, so they could basically just shoot each other with their powers, and they wouldn't make any difference, which is interesting. But they've never had a face-off as far as I know. I have seen Havoc at his full potential, which is in the graphic novel Meltdown, which features Wolverine and Havoc kind of like on downtime away from the X-Men. They're in Mexico for some reason. Havoc gets involved. He gets very, very manipulated by this guy, General Meltdown, orchestrating a situation where he can get charged up with Havoc's power released full on. So he needs to psychologically make Havoc think that he's Like there's nothing left but to kill this guy. So he wants, yeah. And there's lots of great scenes in this graphic novel. It's really well drawn. It's really well written. Wolverine gets shot full of bubonic plague at one point.
He'd just brush it off, mate.
Yeah. It took him out for like half a day. And he also gets blasted by nuclear fire, and you see his skeleton within his arm. It just gets blasted. There's nothing but bones left, and it regenerates. So that was one of the interesting things. Like that's where the full extent of his healing factor becomes apparent. It's like, oh wow, he can completely lose a limb, and it just regrows. Yeah. But in that, you get to see Havoc unleash full on, whereas like you see his skeleton as he's going and just blasting power at General Meltdown. But General Meltdown is powered by nuclear power, so he's just like he's finally got a source of pure energy which he's absorbing.
Thanks, mate. You just gave me a power boost.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was really good. So he gets my vote just because he's this interesting cat that never really gets a lot of attention.
Go through your list again. I thought we might have skipped over one.
So we got Ant-Man, Black Bolt, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange.
We didn't really go into Strange.
No, Doctor Strange. Well, he's really well covered in the movies. So if you've seen the Doctor Strange movies, then you really get a pretty good idea of Doctor Strange. I will say that there's a lot more like Middle Eastern and Asian characters and mythology and stuff involved in the comic book. They need to reference something.
I heard an interesting story about Doctor Strange. One of the who was the writer? I can't remember the writer. Anyway, I was just trying to have a quick Google to have a refresher. One of the main storylines for Doctor Strange was the writer took some LSD and then went roaming around New York and just was tripping balls. Came back and that's where he started writing like all these different like this. He got this whole sort of like inspiration for this whole really popular Doctor Strange story by basically just having a mad night out on LSD.
I often wonder where the name Dormammu came from.
And you can see that in the comic, like it is like some sort of like drug fever dream, especially in those 60s.
The idea behind him being the master of the mystical dimension. So he's basically there to stop things that go and bump in the night from crawling through into, the world. Because there's remarkably little supernatural stuff goes on in the Marvel Earth. There's only a few. There's like Satar. Hang on, don't want to get the MCU and the DC universe mixed up. There's only a few Marvel wizard type. There's Gargoyle, Doctor Strange, Dormammu, Fing Fang Foom, the guy with the rings. The guy with the way they handled the rings is completely different in the movies.
Yeah, the Mandarin.
Yeah, the Mandarin.
Yeah,
understandably, because Marvel has to basically. There was a period there where they basically shoved Chinese characters into the movies, speaking in Chinese for like, okay, here's your 5 minutes of spoken Mandarin during the movie. It was very obvious that they were courting the Mandarin speaking market, and certain things that they leave out of the MCU or the posters that they change, for instance, things like that, like the Black Panther movie poster being a notorious instance of Chinese racism in it.
Yeah. I mean,
like if it's a Western audience, you see his face. If it's a Chinese audience, you just see a mask.
Yeah. Flip. I wish I could remember this writer's name, but he got handed Doctor Strange as the writer. Like Doctor Strange had already been created. Same artist, Ditko. Same guy
been around for a long time.
Yeah, well, Spider-Man.
Yep,
that's him. Yeah, he got Doctor Strange wasn't very popular. I think it was in the 70s. He got given that. Yeah, he didn't know what to do. He went out one night, took some LSD, went on a wild sort of trip around New York, came back and had this his plan worked out for what he was going to do with Doctor Strange.
Should do it myself. Yeah, right. And I like Doctor Strange because he brings in the idea of the multiverse. He really had the multiverse before. We'd played around with it, like with Ant-Man or the Atom, various characters like that, with the idea of being a micro world, and they brought that into the MCU as well, of the microverse. The idea of if you get to beyond quantum level, there's you break into different realities, so you can get to the multiverse through microscopic size Yeah, for some reason. Quantum uncertainty.
Yeah.
And yeah, about the only other thing we haven't really messed around with until recently is time travel, and that's where the whole temporal agency and again multiverse split through time this time, and we've
Well, that's
seen
kind
that.
of what Endgame was time travel.
And we're seeing Loki and various other shows that handle that. Deadpool may possibly involve some of that as well.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
the TVA has been shown in the trailer.
Right, there you go.
So that the TVA, because in that Loki, they go to that planet where everything gets dumped, and some sort of thing like that smoke dragon thing comes along and eats it.
Right.
So you can see in the trailer that's there, and one of the things that's been dumped in the desert is the 20th Century Fox logo. It's just sitting there in the desert.
Nice touch. We shall circle back around to my favorite group in the Marvel universe, and that is the Great Lakes Avengers.
Who's in that lineup?
AKA the Great Lakes X-Men, AKA the Great Lakes Champion, AKA the Great Lakes Initiative, AKA back to Great Lakes Avengers again. So we've got, it's formed around a character called Mr. Immortal, who basically his power is he cannot die, which makes him technically a Homo sapiens superior or whatever they call it in the MCU classifications. But his power is he can't be killed, but he always comes back to life again, and usually kind of like on a mad trip because all of the hormones and stuff like that are blasting through his body because he's just come back from being killed. Like Wolverine, and that is healing factor, but he'll be like, you shoot him in the head and he's dead. And then he basically regenerates instantly and perfectly and comes back mad and crazy and just beats the crap out of everybody. But he was no good as like a lone crime-fighting hero because he has like one shtick, one power. So he got a group of heroes around him, which include Big Bertha, she's a supermodel who has the ability to expand herself hugely like the Blob. And she gets involved in lots of storylines involving her power being really amazing for the dieting industry, and they're always trying to get her DNA. There's Doorman, who is he basically has the ability to stand against the wall and turn into a doorway. But it turns out that he's got a tie into the dark dimension, and he's an agent of the dark dimension or something. Then we've got Flatman, same sort of thing. He can become two-dimensional. Then we've got Dinosaur, who got killed later on, who's basically a pterodactyl person. Then we've got Squirrel Girl, who was so popular and famous that she became what the group is known for. And she got so sick and tired of her basically doing all the work that she left the group, saying that they were never going to expand as heroes if she stayed around because she was so good. So yeah, I like them because they're like the super group that nobody likes, and they keep getting sued. They get sued by the Avengers and sued by the X-Men for using their name.
They're the weirdos. I think there was rumors of Squirrel Girl coming to the MCU. I think Anna Kendrick, the girl that does that Pitch Perfect movie series, she was rumored to be casted it. She's very charismatic.
Yeah, and fits really well with the MCU. But yeah, they're essentially this Wisconsin super team. So nice. I like them because they're so obscure.
Yeah.
And
they're like the ones no one's asking for their autograph.
Yeah, they're like the B team, you know. Yeah, when the Avengers do tryouts and stuff.
The C team.
Yeah.
All right. So we go on to mine then.
Sure.
Is that okay. I kind of cheated with my first one. He's quite a new hero. He only came out in 2018. I liked him so much that I bought a toy already. His name is Cosmic Ghost Rider. Do you know this guy?
No, I don't. I thought you were gonna. I think the newest one I came up with was Speedball Mask.
I'm going to have to spoil it. So Cosmic Ghost Rider is essentially a combination of 3 existing Marvel characters.
Mm-hmm.
He is the combination of the Punisher, the Ghost Rider, and the Silver Surfer. So, in an alternate reality, Thanos comes to Earth, kills all the heroes. Frank Castle is sent to Hell. He makes a deal with Mephisto to come back, and Mephisto sends him back as the Ghost Rider. Earth is destroyed. There's no one there. He is alone. He's the last person. So he's just roaming around a barren Earth as the Ghost Rider, pissed off. Thanos is fucked off somewhere else now to destroy something else. Galactus comes, seeking like the great Marvel superheroes. Galactus has been in a fight with Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
He comes to Earth to seek help from our heroes, finds there's no one left, only Frank is the Ghost Rider. So he makes Frank a deal to become his herald and essentially become the Silver Surfer.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's very like Judge Dredd. He's got a flying motorbike, flaming helmet. So him and Galactus then go to seek out Thanos. There's a really cool scene in the comic where Galactus goes to take Thanos, and Thanos just snaps Galactus's neck, and then he makes Frank his servant. So then now he tells Frank, "Do you like destroying evil? Well, I'm going to go around and destroy evil. You can come with me." So then Frank becomes like the right-hand man of Thanos. And Thanos, you know, what's that thing that Ghost Rider has? Is it called the penance?
Yeah.
The penance stare?
Penance stare, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like Thanos makes Frank give him the penance stare every morning to like wake him up like coffee.
Jeez.
Eventually
Thanos is pretty hardcore.
I'm going to ruin this. I'm going to ruin this entire comic for you.
Okay.
Eventually, Frank breaks loose of Thanos' servitude and is killed. He is then resurrected by Odin. Odin tells him, "I can send you back in any timeline you want." He decides to go all the way back in time to kill baby Thanos. So then he arrives where Thanos is born. Thanos is a baby. He gives Thanos the penance stare. Realizes that Thanos isn't evil yet. So he decides, instead of killing him, I'm going to become his father. So he steals baby Thanos. So now he's rolling around the universe on this like cosmic motorbike with a flaming helmet and a little purple baby strapped to his chest.
Wow.
Am I selling this comic to you?
You are. Yeah. That is so bizarre.
I don't want to. Yeah.
It sounds like something that Daredevil would write.
Yeah, it's just so out there, and it's just so cool.
Oh, not Daredevil. Deadpool. Sorry.
Yeah. Is a really good comic. So I'm sorry I've ruined it, but you kind of have to ruin it to explain why it's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you read all your comics via PDF through a subscription.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a PDF. You don't really own it. You have to be online.
Right.
Marvel Unlimited is what I use. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's I think you can pay monthly or yearly, but I've had it for about 10 years now. It's got the entire back catalogue of Marvel comics on there, including all the Star Wars ones.
And that's a lot of comics, folks. That's a lot of comics.
There's a lot of comics, and I think it's about 6 months after a comic is released, it appears on Unlimited. So as long as you're not like trying to keep up to date.
Yeah. Which you got to be some sort of a hardcore person to do that. Like, but for somebody like me or you who's just like picking up on where we left off with our nostalgia, I think it's a really good option.
Yeah, I got it when Iron Man came out, so 2010. I got a subscription for my birthday from my lovely wife, and she has renewed it ever since. So I have been pretty much had it for 14 years now. So I've read a shitload of Marvel comics in those 14 years.
Yeah.
You know, when you probably average 2 issues a night before I go to sleep or something.
It's like me and role-playing game books. I've read so many years, like I've forgotten more than most people have ever read.
Yeah, so Cosmic Ghost Rider, 2018. He first appeared in a Thanos. There's a really good Thanos run before that called Thanos Wins, which is basically set in an alternative universe where Thanos destroys the universe.
Yeah, I have heard of that one.
That's where he first appears, and then he was so popular he ended up with his own sort of comic there. It's a self-contained arc as well. It's got an ending, so and he has gone on now to become a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So Cosmic Ghost Rider is now a current Guardian of the Galaxy.
Further damaging Peter Quinn's ego.
He is Frank Castle, but he is Frank Castle gone mad, because it's Frank Castle that was basically roaming around Earth on a motorbike. Yeah, I think he was roaming around for about 50 years before Galactus turned up.
Probably not big on conversations over dinner, that guy.
Yeah. Number 5 for me is Doctor. Number 4.
Yeah, we differ in opinion on this one. I certainly see the appeal of Doctor Doom, though. He is a unique and fascinating character. He's kind of got like the whole man in the iron mask thing going for him.
Well, he's the ruler of Latveria. So he's probably most known as the Fantastic Four bad guy, but there's more to him than that. He is a rival of Reed Richards. So Latveria is a very Eastern European country. Leads into that sort of cliche of Eastern European. It's a dictatorship country. His father was a brilliant scientist, and his mother was a gypsy that dwelled in black magic.
Yeah. So it's like you've got a castle of aristocrats, kind of like, got a vampire sort of vibe going on. Some castle in Eastern Europe. They're the affluent ones, and everyone else in the country is a peasant or a magician.
Yeah. So his mother is basically trapped in hell and is being tortured by Mephisto. And he's a scientist, but he's kind of a combination of Reed Richards and Doctor Strange. So he's a scientist that can do magic. So he's got, and the reason he got scarred is he went to try and save his mum from hell. He built a machine. So he went to the same university as Reed Richards, and he built a machine in that university, which ended up exploding, getting him kicked out and scarring him. He blames Reed Richards for that. He thinks Reed Richards fucked with it. That's where that sort of rivalry between him and the Fantastic Four.
He's a genius, but he's also twisted by having a weird background and also being rather.
He's just got an iconic. I love his look. It's just such a cool look. The metal mask, the green cape. It's just, I love. As soon as I saw him in the comics, I love that look.
I like that he's a villain because he doesn't have an alter ego. Like, he just is Doctor Doom.
Yeah. And he has his Doom bots as well, so you never know.
Yeah.
You never know if you're actually really talking to the real Doctor Doom or whether it's a Doom bot.
Yeah. Also,
my dog keeps licking himself.
The tie-in with Ultron, for instance, is much stronger in the comics with Doctor Doom. Yeah, because he's a super scientist inventor. Tony Stark and stuff like that are kind of involved in it as well. But yeah, he's always coming up with crazy schemes, like duplicating himself as robot is a classic, gases sort of thing. And he's been around for a very long time. Like, he's a character that's been involved with the Fantastic Four since they sort of started.
Yeah.
So it was right that he was in the movies, but they didn't do him justice in the movies at all.
Yeah, he has rivalries with obviously the Fantastic Four, but also he has rivalries with Black Panther because he wants the vibranium to build the armor. And he also has rivalries with Doctor Strange. Actually, one of my favorite comics is him and Doctor Strange. Came out in '89, and it was drawn by, what was his name, Mike Mignola, who is known for Hellboy. He's the creator of Hellboy. He did the art for it, and I think it was Genghis invites Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange to compete for the title of Sorcerer Supreme. They have to go to hell and face off against Mephisto. It's a really cool book. He has really distinctive art. He's always good at drawing demons and devils, and it's probably why Hellboy is such a popular run. Yeah, no, I've got a lot of time for old Victor. He's never been represented very well in the movies. That last one, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. He gets blasted by the Silver Surfer, suddenly cured of his metal fusion. Yeah, it's very questionable.
Yeah. That one that came out in 2015, Fantastic Four stick or whatever it was called. He looked like he was part of Daft Punk.
Yeah.
He got like a disco version of him.
Probably better suited as a cyborg in modern things, because we don't really have a. Do we have a cybernetic Avenger? We don't really, do we?
You've got what's his name? Vision. He's somewhat cybernetic.
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah, Falcon's also got cybernetic wings, or he's got a suit that he wears.
Well, he's Captain America now.
Yeah, That's true. The characters we don't have in the MCU. Like Wonder Man, for instance. Wonder Man's up there with my top picks, but he's not in my top favorite of all time characters though. Just because he's kind of limited in what he does. But his story run, I think, was one of my favorites.
So my top three could fluctuate.
Yeah.
Any given day could depend what one is my number one, but I've got to go with the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Massive Hulk fan. We grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I've met Lou Ferrigno. If you look behind me there, AJ, I've actually got a signed photo or a signed poster from Lou. My first memories of the Hulk is I don't know. Remember we used to have black and white TVs? So one of my first memories of the Incredible Hulk was my mum was in hospital and we got a colour TV and we were going to go visit her in hospital, and my dad was telling me, whatever you do, just don't tell mum about the TV. It's a surprise for when she gets home. And then she was asking me what we did that night, and I was like, we watched the Hulk, and he's green. My dad just
why are you around the ears? Yeah.
What did I do? So he was one of the first Origin comics I read as a kid as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when we growing up, I didn't have comic stores where we grew up. So
yeah, we had a Whitcoul's bookstore, and you're lucky if they had a comic.
Yeah, comic. I always tried to avoid buying comics that I knew I could never. Yeah, you'd learn your lessons. You buy a comic and then realize you've bought number 2 of a 6-issue story, and you're never going to find out where it went or how it ended.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of drawn towards comics that I knew were somewhat complete. So most of those were the What If comics, because you kind of knew you were getting a full story in a What If comic.
Yeah.
Also, they did have some limited runs come out in New Zealand of the origin stories. So the Hulk was one of the ones I had. I think it might have come with the annual, actually, now I think about it, for the TV show. I think they might have included it in the back of the annual. So, yeah, he was one that I first had read the original comic, and so I knew about him. He's always been... I'm a very passive person. I do... like anyone, you get angry and you get upset. And he's I've always been drawn to him because you can kind of feel that inner rage inside you and imagine what it's like to be a Hulk when, sometimes, you want to Hulk out in life. So I've always had that. He's always had that appeal to me. There's obviously been different variations of him throughout the comics now. We've had, Grey Hulk.
Yeah, I think I had the longest run of reading the Hulk comic when he was Grey Hulk and up against the Hulkbusters.
Yeah, we got Worldbreaker Hulk as well, which was kind of touched upon in Thor Ragnarok.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. He's a really interesting character because his superpower is tied in with his psychological trauma. So in the movie, they touched on this. I think this is the Ed Norton movie where he said, normal injuries.
I like that movie.
Yeah. Like the nanomachines are designed to heal physical injuries, but what about mental injuries? They just go on and on and on. It's like, yeah, that sums up his power perfectly. His strength is limitless because there is an end to his trauma, his pain. Like it can never be cured. It would never be healed. Yeah, which is really interesting.
Yeah, the word that I can't say, Illuminati, they decided that he was too dangerous to be on Earth anymore. Mr. Fantastic found a perfect planet for him where he thought it was peaceful and he'd be happy. They kind of tricked him into doing a mission where they locked him inside a rocket and then shot him into space. And that's where he ended up on the planet Scar and became, and that was
Planet Hulk.
Planet Hulk storyline, which was pretty much what they did in Thor. They did a kind of take on that in Thor Ragnarok. And then he eventually made his way back to Earth, and that's kind of where we got the World War Hulk storyline. Where he came back, he was obviously even more pissed off. And yeah, so they were two kind of famous ones. Another one that's come out recently is called the Immortal Hulk storyline, which is really, really good. It's it's got such amazing. Are you aware of Alex Ross as a comic book artist? He did. If you see his art, you'll know it. He did a famous DC one called Kingdom Come. His art almost looks like it's painted with oil.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did all the covers for Immortal Hulk. It's a 50-issue run. But essentially, they had Civil War 2. So obviously, Civil War is a movie and a comic. In Civil War 2, there is an Inhuman that basically has the ability to predict the future, and Captain Marvel's using it to stop things before they happen. And Iron Man's upset about that, so that's a whole civil war. But one of the ones is this guy picks up that the Hulk is going to cause mass damage, so they make this decision to kill the Hulk, and Hawkeye actually kills the Hulk with a special arrow. And then Hulk is resurrected, but everyone still thinks he's dead. So this is where the storyline of Immortal Hulk is set up. But now he's got a new persona called the Devil Hulk, and it only comes out at nighttime. So it's very similar to the TV show, where it's like in the TV show he was kind of like a hitchhiker that was just wandering around. Yeah, so this is what this is like. He just wanders around small town America, and then he gets involved in scuffs with local gangs or whatever, and then he'll Hulk out, and then there'll be a reporting of the Hulk, and people will come investigate, and he'll fuck off to the next town.
You get a lot of that alluded to in the movies, but you don't see a lot of it. Like, we join the Hulk when he's in South America, or So most of the time, or Calcutta somewhere,
and everyone thinks he's dead. So it's all like, is he dead? Isn't he dead? Even so, that the lady. There's a journalist in it that's like following all these like Hulk sightings. Her name is Jackie McGee.
Right.
And in the TV show,
Mr. McGee.
it was Jack McGee.
Yeah. The reporter.
So, and it even has the "you won't like me when you get angry" type side of it. But it also really has a real strong horror vibe to it. So the way that Hulk is resurrected is there's something called the Green Door, and gamma radioactive creatures can come through the Green Door into our world. So all these like gamma monsters are coming in, and they're all friggin' like scary as, and it's very violent. It's a really good, interesting story. So I recommend that one.
I might have to check that out.
Yeah, I'm going to go vanilla here. Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah. Spider-Man has been the MCU for a long time for a lot of people. And it's so weird that it was separated as a franchise from the rest of it, through selling it off. And then now Spider-Man finally gets reintegrated. And it's kind of the same way in the comics too. He's kind of, he's been in the Avengers, but not really officially an Avenger. He's not really at the power scale of Avengers, but occasionally has taken on really high level things just through circumstantial power increases that he's had. Like he was Captain Universe at one point. But yeah, it's always interesting with Peter Parker because they want to keep him like a relatable hero.
So I really like. I think I actually like Miles Morales more than Peter Parker now. I was really skeptical when they announced Miles Morales. I just thought they're just trying to be diverse for the sake of diversity type. Yeah, I was coming at it at a skeptical thing, but he is a really good character, and it just goes to prove, they managed to catch the essence of what everything is really cool about Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but also reinvent it in a way that works and feels fresh as well, but it doesn't feel like they're just trying to appeal to a more diverse audience.
Yeah, because he's a contemporary character, so he needs to be relatable for the reader. And today's reader is Miles Morales, essentially. That's the kid who's not too sure about what he's going to do with his future. Is artistic, creative, kind of eclectic, high maintenance individual, not very reliable.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to explain it a little bit. So in around 2000, when the original sort of early Marvel movies were taking off, so when we got X-Men, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, obviously Marvel were like, this is a good opportunity for us to sell comics, but they wanted to attract new comic book readers, so they needed to reinvent their comic book universe essentially, so they could start again. But you know, because people can't just pick up a comic of Fantastic Four and know what's going on, so they created the Ultimate Comics. So that Ultimate Comics was a new storyline, so that you could pick it up and start again. So they reinvented the origin stories, they retold the origin stories in classic tales. So we had Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and these didn't tie in with the movies that they were bringing out. These are just just an entirely separate line, which is very confusing for people.
Yeah, and the Ultimates ultimately became the inspiration for the Avengers, to the point Nick Fury is pretty much looks like Samuel L. Jackson in the comics, that they even make a joke about how he looks like Samuel L. Jackson in the comics. So when they cast him, it was an inside joke,
right? Yeah.
And Miles Morales came from the Ultimate Universe. So in the Ultimate Universe, it's pretty similar to how it was represented in the movie. He gets bitten by a radioactive spider, but in that universe, that Spider-Man dies, and that's how he picks up the mantle of Spider-Man. It was so popular that Ultimate Comics no longer exists. They got rid of that comic, but they folded it. They had another Secret Wars, and they folded that universe into their main universe and brought Miles Morales across into the main universe. So now he exists in the 616, which is their main universe.
Yeah. Boy, do they really, to be honest, not have a good system for.
Well, comics are complicated, mate. Yeah. Brian Michael Bendis is a fantastic writer. He's done so many good comics. Daredevil, Superman. He's a great writer, and he handles this Miles Morales so well. My favorite Miles Morales thing is probably the movies. I think those Spider-Verse movies are just some of they would probably be in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Just the story, the art, the homage to all the different styles of comic. It's just something about it. It's just so fresh. It's such a cool story. Voice acting. We've probably all seen them. I'm looking forward to the third one, because the second one obviously
stopped abruptly,
ends on a major cliffhanger. Yeah. So hopefully they smash it. But I think that whole Into the Spider-Verse movies they're just phenomenal. Even my kids love them.
Yeah.
So
and they're relatable for kids these days too, because kids these days have grown up with the idea of the multiverse. It's just a given for them, like it's reality. So yeah, that's good.
So my final one is Wolverine. The reason I like Wolverine is I am the same height. I can grow really good sideburns. I've kind of related. I'm kind of grumpy. There's just, I don't think we need to explain. I mean, I was one of those people, like when they said Hugh Jackman was being cast as Wolverine, I'm like, but he's like 6 foot fucking something. Like Wolverine's 5'8".
Yeah. He's a swarthy, small, angry Canadian man.
Hairy man. Yeah.
I relate to Wolverine because of my healing factor and my ability to swipe somebody's head off with my bare hand. So yeah, that's about it really. That and smoking cigars. I envy him his ability to smoke cigars.
Yeah, and he just can't die.
Yeah.
There's a really cool comic I read. One of my favorite comics. Like, there's obviously some famous ones. Old Man Logan is huge. Enemy of the State is my favorite Wolverine comic, which is where he gets brainwashed by the Hand and Hydra to become a assassin and take out the Avengers and all the Marvel superheroes. And the way they do it is they kill him because of his healing factor. So they blow him up to he's just a skeleton. You get the Fantastic Four find him. They take him back to a lab and they're like, oh my God, he's died. And he starts regenerating. And then when he regenerates and becomes himself again, he then just starts going on a rampage. He rips apart the Fantastic Four and he just starts killing people. Yeah, so it's just a really badass. And then obviously he breaks his brainwashing, and because there's always a character that's getting fucked with by the government as well.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Like,
He's invulnerable but vulnerable at the same time. He's raw. That's what we like about him. And he
yeah,
has the ability to be traumatized and damaged mentally, but physically he
yeah,
always remains the same. That's the whole thing. And the idea that he's hundreds of years old, but always looks the same because of his healing factor. So his power is also a curse.
yeah. He is going to be a hard one to recast.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I thought that about like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I never thought Toby was a very good Spider-Man to begin with. But that first Spider-Man movie is just perfect. It's a technically perfect movie. Like if I was teaching somebody how to do a superhero movie, that first Spider-Man movie would be my example of like.
I've always preferred Spider-Man 2 over Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's also good. Yeah, but that first movie is just like the score, the cast, the pacing, all that sort of stuff. Technically, it's a perfect movie. Mind you,
Yeah,
I
so,
feel that way
yeah,
about the original The Day the Earth Stood Still. So, I'm just cinematography and then there's a good story. The second movie is probably a better story.
All right. Yeah, so that's my top. Not my top 5, but that's my 5 favorite Marvel characters. Yeah, so we'll do. We've got a bit of correspondence this week. We have a letter theme, which I'll put in. It's a little bit metal, so I'll
yeah,
I'll play it.
Bring the letters, hear the call. Wizards read them one and all. Questions from the listeners, voices loud and clear. You can have your opinions read out here.
So, first one we have here is from Cadence Clearwater on our YouTube, just under our Judge Dredd episode.
Mm-hmm.
So they just asked, wasn't the surfer called Chopper? So remember we were talking about the Sky Surfers in Mega City 1? And I was telling you about there's an Australian...
that would make sense, Chopper Reed.
Yeah. So I did a little bit more looking into this. So Oz is a post-war Australia mega city. The local beer in Oz is called Thunder Chunder 4X.
Yep. Yeah. Australia was famous for many years for having a beer that just had 4 X's on the label.
Their version of the Cursed Earth is called the Radback, and there's 2 other settlements in their Cursed Earth. One is called Drongo Springs, and the other is called Chunder Range.
Right. Yeah. Drongo Springs. Alice Springs being, of course, the town in the middle of the desert of Australia, which is literally the middle of nowhere.
Yep. Oz is hostile towards New Zealand, or as it's called, and there is New Pacific City, and Auckland is called Kiwi Sit. This mega city is allegedly one of the most crime-free on the planet.
Oh, nice. Okay. New Zealand's keeping its reputation.
No, they've never been to South Auckland.
No, clearly not. We are one of the least corrupt countries in the world, so there's that.
Brendan McCarthy is the guy that did the run on that, as I mentioned, and he went on to do Fury Road. But he also was the screenwriter on 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie and also Highlander 2.
Wow. Highlander 2. Wow.
The Quickening.
Okay. So
that was Highlander 2 was the first. It is the first movie that I remember watching going, I don't think this is a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. When you looked at it, like, people think that Star Wars got a raw shafting with the midichlorians and stuff, but what they did to Highlander, they just totally rewrote the whole mythos of the thing and turned it into a bad sci-fi that was quite bad.
I just remember being so excited and then just sitting there through the movie. I just remember it. I think it was the first time I recognized that something wasn't good.
Yeah. It's like, wow, they really screwed the pooch on this one. Yeah, it was the bird. It was the bird guy flying through the air on some sort of a space backpack Ford thing, and it was just
they had like hover jets. So
it was just so bad.
They were aliens. They were aliens.
Yeah, it's like, remember everything that you liked about the first movie? Well, we got rid of all of that, and here's this, and it's just like, what the? How to completely alienate your fandom instantaneously? Yeah. Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
so that guy, that director.
Yeah. So thanks for that. So it was quite. I thought they were quite amusing. Random bucket on Spotify wants to know: wouldn't it technically be a mimic pretending to be a mic?
Oh, right. Yes, it would be. Yeah. So I'm talking into nothing, essentially. I'm talking into the backside of a small amorphous creature.
Yeah. All right. And then so obviously I chucked out that we were going to be covering Marvel. John Shepherd, if he wanted to sound intelligent, he would say Magneto, because he's obviously got an incredibly rich and varied life story, and you can put him on either side of the goody baddie divide. But honestly,
I would actually go with Quicksilver in that regard, not Magneto.
But if he's being honest, MODOK is his favorite because he's just a giant floating head.
Yeah. MODOK. You see MODOK's goons in the background, the AIM guys, Advanced Institute of something or other. Yeah. So they're kind of, there's like these agencies which basically just, goons in suits that fight thingies, and they usually have some sort of megalomaniac in charge of them.
MODOK is an acronym for, was it mechanized organism designed only for killing?
Oh, that's right. AIM is Advanced Idea Mechanics. That's right. Thank you, Brain.
Did you see? Have you seen Ant-Man Quantumania?
Yes, I have.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
MODOK got fucked.
Yeah, he got really shafted. Mind you, I mean, he was always kind of a joke character. You can't look like that and not be hilarious.
There is apparently a cartoon show on Disney Plus over here. I think Patton Oswalt does the voice. Who's the guy that did the voice for the rat in Ratatouille?
That's one of the only things I've avoided instantaneously because the reviews were so bad that I just decided not to damage myself.
I haven't watched
my
it.
already low opinion of MODOK originally. Yeah. So sorry, Patton. Not going to watch it.
Yeah. Obviously Magneto. He's got a bit of a Nazi. The reason he's on that divide of mutants. Because he has got an interesting story. It's really well done in the movies.
Yeah, the movie is a case where the movie did it better than the comic books did, so everybody went with what the movie said instead of what the original comic book origin. I don't even remember what his origins were in the comic book. I don't think they really covered it, but in the movie, it's totally different.
Yeah, and he's obviously played by two great actors as well, like both.
Yeah.
Well, both the older X-Men and the newer X-Men are both really well cast.
Yeah, Fassbender. I think Fassbender is a much better Magneto than Gandalf. Really, like he did a good job of it, but like he was the foil to Patrick Stewart, whereas we needed something totally different for young. Yeah, you couldn't have you'd have to change both those actors. You wouldn't have one actor playing the same character and then change the other actor. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have Patrick Stewart playing against the new Magneto sort of thing. Even if they went back in time, they'd have to change it somehow. I don't know.
I do like that scene in the X-Men film where he fucks with Wolverine. Like, is that stuff all the way through your body in the train?
Yeah. Interesting. Adamantium gets explained as a metal, but it's also an alloy, but it's also a polymer at the same time. So it's really strange how they treat it in the movie lore because you're never entirely sure whether it is a metal or not because it really shouldn't be. It's more like an epoxy resin sort of thing. That's like for instance, it's only malleable when it's hot. So it's mixed and reacted, and then it stays malleable while it's hot. But as soon as it cools in that mixed form, it's indestructible. It can't be changed. It's immutable. So it's interesting that way. And is it magnetic?
Right.
Probably shouldn't be, but it is.
Chris Price, he said Daredevil. As a child, I loved his simple red costume, the horns on his helmet, and the overlapping Ds on his chest. As I grew older and started reading comics, I fell upon Frank Miller Born Again series, where it just seems so grown up. We touched on that during our Ninja Turtles episode. And then obviously in my 30s, Brian Michael Bendis, who we just talked about, who is the creator of Miles Morales. He took over Daredevil. He became my favorite book on the shelves every month for probably its 3-year run. So there's something about this character. he just seems to inspire great stories, writers and artists who are on top of their game. He doesn't think there's been a bad run of Daredevil. I'd probably agree with that. I've read a lot of Daredevil. There is. He is. He's so downtrodden and miserable. He's always self-sacrificing. He is a really interesting character. They obviously he plays a lot on the Catholic side of it as well. So he's always, it's better to ask for forgiveness, I guess, is his kind of superhero mantra, how he deals with crime. He's got ninjas. Obviously, Frank Miller brought in the Hand, so we got Elektra, we got all the ninjas, the Kingpin, great villain. All these heroes are always as good as their rogues gallery.
Yeah.
It's probably why Spider-Man is so enduring, because he's Spider-Man and Batman have both got such fantastic rogues gallery.
Yeah, it's interesting that like Batman is a good case in point why Marvel and DC are so different. Like Batman is a street level hero, but he's also in a world-saving super team because he's a super genius as well. Whereas in Marvel, it doesn't really matter how smart your character is. You can still be a street hero. Like Peter Parker, for instance, he's supposed to be like pretty damn smart. He makes his own web fluid and stuff like that in the comic books. And you get that in the first Spider-Man movie where he's, acknowledged as being scientifically gifted and he shows him going to university and studying science and stuff. And even better in the second, like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, where he hasn't invented the web fluid stuff, but he figures out how to make it superconductive. And he figures out his father's formula for, the mutant regeneration thingy that the lizard man guy is after. So stuff like that. You see elements of that. So you get these street level heroes, and Daredevil is one of the street level heroes, and Spider-Man is a street level hero. So they don't really fit in with the Avengers because you don't really see the Hulk out solving crimes, doing neighborly stuff. That's one of the reasons why I liked Wonder Man, is because Wonder Man had this big arc where his ionic energy was leaking out of his body and causing his neighbors and friends who interact with him to get temporary superpowers. And he was kind of a twisted character with a lot of mental issues because of his history and how he got his powers in the first place. And he was like a criminal. He's done criminal things. So he's got this redemption arc going all the way through. A lot of issues where he feels a lot of guilt for what he did or has done or been a part of. And also that element of like day-to-day storytelling is quite easy with this character. And they had this big love triangle between him and the Vision and Scarlet Witch, which got totally written out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I thought was a shame. In many ways, it's like it would have been more difficult for them to write Wonder Man out of the stories than it would have been to just put him in there. And I think the reason why they didn't put him in there is simply because you can't have a Wonder Man and a Wonder Woman at the same time in today's world. They would have seen it as DC's version of Wonder Man is a man, not a woman, sort of thing. But they're totally unrelated characters.
He was rumored, wasn't he? Wasn't Nathan Fillion rumored to be Wonder Man at one point?
Nathan Fillion was cast as Wonder Man as a movie during the movie actor sort of stage, because he was supposed to be like a stuntman and stuff, because his powers are pretty good for it. But the idea was that he was in the background, and so it would have been a movie poster of Wonder Man, which was in one particular scene that the scene got cut from. So Nathan Fillion was never really part of the MCU.
Okay. Yeah, Netflix did a good job of capturing what was cool about Daredevil. Back to Daredevil. Don't get in a fight in a hallway with the guy. He'll fuck you up.
Much better than because they had a whole big stretch there of the street level heroes. So you had Jessica Jones, you had Iron Man.
The Defenders. They did the Defenders.
And so the Defenders are like street level Avengers, essentially. So if there's a threat to the city, then you call in the Defenders sort of thing. If there's a threat to the country, you bring in the Avengers. And
really well cast. Charlie Cox, obviously they've folded him because he made a little bit of a cameo in that last Spider-Man film. So they're kind of folding him into, I believe they're doing the Born Again storyline.
Yeah, the one weakness there was the guy who actually played Iron Fist sucked, and the whole Iron Fist series sucked.
Oh, he was,
like that was terrible. That was like a hit and miss there. They should have
so terrible.
I don't know, gotten a bit more realistic about it.
Ed Brubaker's Iron Fist comic run is sensational. Really good, really good comic. And but the Kingpin, fuck, fantastic casting there. One of the best, probably, MCU villains.
Yeah.
That scene with the car door, Jesus.
Yeah. He's an iconic actor for a reason, and he really took that character seriously, which is great. It's good to see. Like, when an actor really takes their craft seriously, it's like, this is not a throwaway role. This is a really interesting character, and he got quite into the psychology behind Kingpin as a tragic.
Yeah,
like, he's insane. Kingpin is insane, but he's driven in a really weird sort of way, and ultra dangerous for people around him.
He's got a good work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But like, that's the really scary thing about Kingpin, is that he's this caged animal. Like, he cages himself in his finery and stuff like that. Like, he wears these fancy suits and he has all the finest things and stuff, but really he's a stark raving lunatic who's just, that's his measure of controlling himself.
Ryan Doyle said Cyclops.
Okay. Yep. I mean, she certainly appeals. She's a bit character in the X-Men. You never really get any exposition on her character at all. Or if there was, it would have been 1 or 2 issues, which I didn't read.
I think she's more like for the animated series, the 97 animated series. I think she was really highlighted in that. I didn't really watch the 97 animated series much. I know they've redone it now as X-Men 99 or
no,
something.
It's not a
well, continuation.
It's a continuation of it, like it never ended. Basically, that's the idea. So they keep it true to the original. I think what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll probably watch the original X-Men, and then I'll continue watching with the new stuff and see how it stacks up.
Yep. And Kelp says Gambit, trench coat, fingerless gloves, throwing cards, makes things go boom.
He was just he ticked all the cool factor boxes.
There was rumours there for a Gambit movie for a while. I know he was in that terrible Wolverine film, played by the same dude that did John Carter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Taylor Quiche. And then I believe Channing Tatum was tied for a long time to play Gambit. And I think that fell through with the Fox merger. He was obviously a big... Gambit is another one that kind of became popular through the show as well, I believe. He's quite a recent character.
I personally think they should get him played by Matt McConaughey, because he sounds like him.
That's my struggle with Gambit, is I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
When I read it, I'm like, what's he saying? Probably much like what our listeners think of us.
Probably, yeah. Or Train Spotting. It's like Train Spotting. He's written in character, in lingo.
But yeah, he's definitely. I know a lot of people love Gambit. There's a lot of Gambit fans out there.
His fandom kind of came along at peak Wolverine fandom. So he was kind of on the map because the X-Men were on the map big time. But I think probably my favorite X-Men, aside from the ones that I mentioned, is the Beast, because he's that super brainy, tortured character that's got a lot of depth, but you never really see a lot about his personal life, his relationships, or anything like that. So he could have been explored more.
And Fraser, actually, the guy that plays Fraser, actually is a good voice for him as well. I think. Kelsey Grammer. Yep. Yeah, he's
also known for being an individual that experiments with different types of chemicals. Yeah,
I've always liked Cable as my X-Men.
Yeah, he's outside of my wheelhouse. He came kind of like on the scene after. That's when X-Force and all those Liefeld comics were showing up all over the place. So he was what I call the pockets, the pouches era of X-Men, where they were all wearing straps with pouches. Yep. Tons and tons of pouches for no reasons.
Well, he's the son of Cyclops.
Yep.
From the future.
Yeah. So he's got the ropey characteristics of that. You can tell he's from that particular era. He's got lots of pouches. He wears a skin tight outfit, and we're talking like skin tight. You can see his hair follicles. His cybernetics look like cords, not mechanical parts. And what else? Oh, time travel.
So
he's
and that's it, mate. That's our correspondence for this week.
Right.
Sorry if it's been a bit of a low energy episode. I
think you've done well.
I have.
Apart from not being able to pronounce Illuminati.
Yeah, maybe next week. My mouth is so dry. I'm going to go to the McDonald's drive-thru after this and then have a nap.
I had to explain to my uncle the other day when I was in Tauranga and we were discussing what sort of junk food to eat, and he's just like, can't we like go get something healthy? And I was like, no, you don't get it. Like I live outside of the city. So when I come to the city, it's like to eat the junk food. If I want healthy food, I just go home.
Yeah. Sweet and sour sauce and frozen Coke is what my body is craving.
Exactly. Frozen Coke is the thing.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, that's about it.
Plug this week?
Basically just, it's midwinter. I'm working my way through it. What can I say? My power bill's too high.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. Try having bloody kids that don't know how to turn light bulbs off. I think that's my catchphrase in my house. Turn the lights off.
Close the door. Turn the lights off. Yeah. Turn the heat down.
I can hear my dad coming through.
Yeah.
Don't know what we think about for next week. Maybe I wouldn't mind doing maybe some. Well, we could go back to D&D. Something I'd like to do. I know that you have an interest in as well as fighting fantasy, maybe, or
yep.
Choose your own adventure type.
I was just running through the Warlock of Firetop White Mountain video game just before. So yeah, you can actually run through that book as a video game on your computer, believe it or not.
Nice. Yeah, well, it's kind of, we'll touch on that early maybe Games Workshop era.
Sure. The construction
we can have a think about
and
it.
making of choose your own adventure books, the very concept behind them, where they come from, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll do our research and
definitely.
circle back to you within a week.
And I won't be hungover.
No,
I'll have more energy. No, so, anyway, that's good night from me.
And good night from him.
Yeah, good night. I am going to bed. Good night.